When someone takes you for granted, it's not because you weren't valuable, it's because they convinced themselves you'd always be there. They mistook your kindness for permanence, your loyalty for weakness, and your love for something they could endlessly withdraw from without ever replenishing. But here's the truth. Nothing makes a person wake up faster than absence. The love they thought was guaranteed suddenly becomes the loss they can't replace. And while you're moving forward, growing stronger and living better, regret is quietly waiting for them in the shadows. Because the one thing life never lets anyone escape is the cost of what they failed to appreciate when they had it. When someone gets comfortable with your love, they begin to believe it will always be there, no matter how they treat you. That's the danger of the comfort trap. It convinces them that they don't need to put in effort anymore. In the beginning, they might have worked to impress you, to earn your attention, to show you they cared. But once they felt secure, once they assumed your heart was theirs unconditionally, they stopped showing up in the same way. And it's not because you weren't worth it. It's because they got lazy, entitled, and blind to the treasure right in front of them. Comfort doesn't just dull appreciation, it breeds carelessness. The truth is, human beings are wired to take for granted what feels constant. When something is always within reach, it can be undervalued. He thought your love was endless, that no matter how little he gave, you would still give more. He thought your patience had no limit, that you'd always forgive, always stay, always bend. But what he never considered was that comfort has an expiration date, because eventually the person being taken for granted wakes up. And when you wake up, you stop giving, you stop forgiving, and you stop showing up the way you once did. That's when the shift happens. What he doesn't realize in the moment is that comfort is fragile. It creates a false sense of security, one that masks the truth. Nothing is guaranteed. The very second you decide you've had enough, the foundation of his comfort collapses. He may have thought you'd never leave, but when you do, his world turns upside down. And in that moment, regret doesn't just show up, it crashes in like a storm he can't control. Suddenly, all the things he dismissed become the things he misses. All the little acts of love he overlooked become the exact things he craves. That's when he starts replaying memories in his head, asking himself how he lost someone who gave so much without asking for much in return. The comfort trap blinds people to reality until reality strikes, and reality is this: your love was not an infinite resource, it was a gift. Every act of kindness, every ounce of patience, every moment of forgiveness was you investing in him. But when he stopped reciprocating, when he grew careless, he unknowingly started writing the ending of the story. He thought he was safe, but he was actually pushing you closer to the door. And here's where regret comes in. It doesn't hit instantly. At first, he may feel relief, thinking he still has options, still has time, still has you. But as the days pass, as he sees you stepping into your strength, as he realizes your absence isn't temporary, that's when regret starts to grow. The irony is that the comfort he abused becomes the regret he can't escape. He'll remember the times you stayed when you could have left, the way you supported him when no one else did, the way you made life lighter just by being there. Those memories don't fade, they haunt him, and the more he tries to replace you, the more he'll realize that not everyone loves with the depth, the loyalty, and the patience you gave him. Comfort made him careless, but regret makes him aware. It teaches him the lesson he refused to learn when he had the chance, that your love was not guaranteed, it was earned, and he stopped earning it. So while he was stuck in the comfort trap, thinking you'd never walk away, you were quietly rediscovering your strength. You realized you were worth more than crumbs, worth more than excuses, worth more than being taken for granted. And that realization is what sets you free. His regret isn't your burden to carry. It's the weight he must face when he finally understands that losing you wasn't just a possibility. It was the inevitable result of his carelessness. Comfort made him blind, but regret will open his eyes long after it's too late. The most powerful reminder of your worth often comes not from words, but from your absence. When someone has gotten used to you always being there, they start to believe your presence is permanent, like air they can breathe without thinking. They don't question it, they don't value it, they don't stop to appreciate it. But the moment that presence disappears, the silence it leaves behind hits harder than anything you could have said. That silence becomes the echo of everything they ignored, everything they took for granted, and everything they thought they'd never lose. When you step back, you shift the dynamic completely. He's no longer surrounded by your voice, your laughter, your energy, or your support. At first, he might not even notice he's still living in the illusion that you'll always be there. But over time, the void becomes undeniable. He goes to reach out and realizes you don't respond the way you used to. He looks for comfort and finds that it's no longer available. He expects your attention and is faced with silence. That's when the absence starts to weigh on him. What once felt like a guarantee now feels like a gaping hole, and the truth is, absence speaks louder than any confrontation could. Words can be dismissed, argued with, or brushed aside, but absence can't be ignored. It's felt in the everyday moments, the quiet mornings, the long nights, the times he wants to share something, but realizes you're no longer there to hear it. Absence doesn't shout, it whispers, but its whispers grow louder with time, gnawing at him in ways he can't escape. The beauty of stepping back is that it puts the spotlight on his own behavior. When you were present, when you gave and gave, he could convince himself that everything was fine. Your consistency allowed him to stay blind to his own carelessness. But when you withdraw, he has no choice but to face reality. Your absence is a mirror that reflects his mistakes back to him. It makes him confront the fact that he pushed too far, gave too little, and assumed too much. And that confrontation, though silent, is brutal. Your absence also redefines your value in his mind. What was once abundant now becomes scarce. What he thought was replaceable suddenly feels irreplaceable. This is the law of human nature. We don't fully understand the worth of something until it's gone. He may have thought your love was ordinary, but without it, he realizes it was extraordinary. He may have thought your support was automatic, but without it, he realizes how rare it truly was. Your absence teaches him a lesson your presence never could, that you were never something to be taken lightly. This is when regret begins to creep in, not in a dramatic moment, but in the small realizations that pile up over time. He sees you moving on, thriving, building a life that doesn't include him, and suddenly he feels the full weight of his choices. He replays moments he dismissed, conversations he ignored, opportunities he wasted. He recognizes too late that your absence isn't a punishment, it's the consequence of his actions. And regret becomes the shadow that follows him everywhere he goes. For you, stepping back is not about revenge, it's about reclaiming your power. It's about saying, I will no longer give my energy to someone who doesn't value it. And while you may not always see the impact directly, know this, your absence is louder than anything you could have said. It leaves a mark, it forces him to face himself, it turns the comfort he once felt into discomfort he can't shake. And that discomfort is the birthplace of regret. In the end, your absence is not just silence, it's the most powerful statement you'll ever make. It says, without words, you lost something rare, and you'll feel that loss long after I've stopped thinking about you. That's the truth he'll have to live with, and that's the regret he'll never escape. People rarely value what feels abundant. When something is always there, easily accessible and consistent, it becomes invisible. That's the law of scarcity. It's only when something is no longer available that its worth becomes crystal clear. In relationships, this law plays out in painful ways. He may have thought your love was endless, that no matter how little effort he put in, you'd still be there. He convinced himself that your patience, your care, and your loyalty were permanent fixtures. But the moment you step back, the moment you stop giving so freely, the scarcity of your presence hits him in a way nothing else could. Suddenly, what he once overlooked becomes priceless. In the beginning, he may have treated your attention casually, like it was something he could dip in and out of whenever he wanted. He believed you would always answer his calls, always forgive his mistakes, always wait for him to show up when it was convenient. And maybe for a while you did, because love makes us generous. But generosity without boundaries invites carelessness. And eventually, that carelessness forces you to reclaim your worth by pulling back. It's in that moment, when the abundance he relied on turns into scarcity, that the lesson begins. Scarcity forces appreciation. It wakes people up to the reality of what they've lost. Think about it. When something is rare, people guard it, cherish it, and treat it like treasure. When something is common, people become careless. He thought your love was common, but once it's gone, he realizes it was rare all along. He realizes not everyone will tolerate his flaws the way you did. Not everyone will show up for him without being asked. Not everyone will love him without condition. That awareness doesn't come when you're still there. It comes when you're no longer accessible. That's when regret seeps in, because he starts to compare what he had with what he now faces, and the gap is undeniable. Scarcity also flips the power dynamic. When your presence was abundant, he held the illusion of control. He thought he could come and go as he pleased, thinking you'd always be there waiting. But when you make yourself scarce, when you step away and remove access, he suddenly feels powerless. He no longer has the comfort of knowing you're a constant option. He begins to chase what he once took for granted. That shift isn't about games or manipulation, it's about you finally treating your love as the rare gift it always was. The regret that follows scarcity is particularly harsh because it's rooted in realization. He doesn't just miss you, he realizes he undervalued you. He understands that he had something others dream of and failed to protect it. And that realization burns deeper than any argument could. It's the kind of regret that doesn't fade easily because it's tied to self-awareness. Every new person he meets, every relationship he tries to build, he'll measure against what he lost. And in that measuring, the scarcity of what you gave becomes impossible to forget. For you, embracing scarcity isn't about punishing him. It's about honoring yourself. It's about recognizing that your love, your time, your energy are valuable resources, not infinite supplies. By making yourself scarce, you show the world, and yourself, that you will not be treated as ordinary. You teach through your actions that anyone who has access to your heart has a privilege, not a guarantee. And while he may come to regret not realizing this sooner, that regret is no longer your burden to carry. It's his lesson, his karma, his silent teacher. In the end, scarcity is what redefines everything. Your presence, once abundant and overlooked, becomes rare and unforgettable. He may have taken you for granted when you were there, but your absence ensures he will never forget you once you're gone. And that is where regret waits patiently, reminding him every day of the value he failed to see until it was too late. Love is energy, and energy is a currency far more valuable than money. Every text you sent, every call you answered, every time you forgave, every little gesture of care, you were spending from your emotional bank account. And for a long time, you invested freely. You poured your energy into him because you believed in the relationship, because you valued him, because you wanted to build something meaningful. But here's the truth. When someone takes that currency and spends it carelessly, when they make withdrawals without ever depositing anything back, eventually the account runs dry. That's when you wake up and realize that your energy was never being matched. And that's when the real bankruptcy begins, his, not yours. He didn't see it at first because your love felt like an endless supply. He thought no matter how little he gave, you'd continue to pour. He thought he could keep taking without ever truly giving because you had always been there. But what he failed to realize is that your love wasn't a bottomless well. It was a gift, one that required respect and reciprocity. And when he treated it like something disposable, he set himself up for the one thing he never saw coming: regret. Because when your energy disappears, when your care is no longer offered, when your attention is no longer given, he realizes he bankrupted himself of the very thing he once thought he'd always had access to. Energy leaves fingerprints. The way you lifted him up when he was down, the way you believed in him when he doubted himself, the way you brought warmth into cold spaces, that energy lingers long after you've stopped giving it. And when you're gone, he feels the void. Other people may give him attention, but it won't feel the same. Other people may show interest, but it won't carry the depth you gave so effortlessly. Energy is unique, and yours was powerful. He didn't notice its weight when he had it, but the absence of it is heavy. That's where regret lives, in the space where your energy once flowed and no longer does. The irony is that he may try to find it elsewhere. He may chase other people, other experiences, hoping to feel that same steady current of love and loyalty. But he'll discover quickly that what he lost is not easy to replace, because your energy wasn't ordinary. It wasn't surface level. It was real, invested, intentional. And once he realizes that, he begins to understand the cost of his carelessness. He thought he could live without your energy, but instead he finds himself haunted by it, missing it, regretting the way he squandered it. For you, reclaiming your energy is the ultimate act of self-respect. It's you saying, I will no longer fund someone who doesn't know how to invest back. And while that choice may feel painful in the moment, it's also liberating. Because the moment you stop pouring into someone who only takes, you redirect that energy into yourself, your growth, and the people who actually value you. That's how you begin to rebuild, stronger and freer than before. And as you glow in that new energy, he feels the contrast. While you're richer for pulling back, he's poorer for taking too much. That imbalance is the lesson he has to live with. Regret becomes the interest on his debt. It grows over time, creeping into quiet moments when he remembers your patience, your support, your consistency. It gnaws at him when he realizes he's overdrawn the account and there are no more deposits coming. And no matter what he does, he can't refill it, because he already proved he didn't know how to honor it. That is the cost of taking energy for granted, the cost of losing something irreplaceable. In the end, your energy was the greatest currency you ever gave. He wasted it, and now he has to live in the emptiness of that loss. You, on the other hand, walk away wealthier than ever, because you've learned the value of your own energy, and you'll never again invest it in someone who doesn't know its worth. His regret is nothing more than the debt he created, and life will make sure he pays it in full. There comes a point when a woman's silence speaks louder than any words she could say. You don't need to tell him he hurt you. You don't need to announce your absence. And you don't need to deliver some grand speech about how much you gave and how little he appreciated. The most powerful statement you can make is not made with your mouth, it's made with your actions. When you no longer chase, no longer explain, no longer remind him of your value, the silence does the talking for you. And that silence, over time, becomes deafening for him. You see, people often think they hold power when they can get away with taking someone for granted. They believe that as long as you're still showing up, still forgiving, still answering, they're in control. But the moment you stop, the moment you withdraw completely, they realize just how powerless they actually are. Because the energy they once thought was guaranteed has suddenly evaporated, and there's nothing they can do to demand it back. That absence starts to echo in every corner of their life. It shows up when they come home to an empty space where your presence once filled the room. It creeps in when they're lying awake at night, and the phone doesn't buzz with a caring message from you. Silence forces them to sit with themselves, and in that space, regret begins to form. The beauty of silence is that it doesn't need explanation. When you stop responding, when you stop investing, when you stop showing up, he doesn't need a manual to understand why. He knows, deep down, he knows exactly what he did to cause it. He knows it was his choices, his behavior, his neglect, his failure to appreciate you that led to your withdrawal. Silence becomes a mirror, reflecting back his actions to him in the clearest way possible, and that reflection is painful because there's no one left to blame. Without your words to argue against, without your presence to lean on, he is left alone with the reality of his own mistakes. This is why silence is so powerful. It creates space for him to feel the consequences of his actions. When you argue, when you plead, when you try to prove your worth, you're still cushioning the blow of reality. You're still giving him attention, and attention even in conflict feeds his ego, but silence removes the feeding. It starves his ego, it cuts off the supply, it forces him to confront the truth without distraction. And in that void, he begins to realize what he lost, what he can't get back, and how deeply he underestimated your value. Of course, silence isn't just for him, it's for you too. It's the moment you reclaim your peace, because silence isn't passive, it's intentional. It's a decision not to waste your words on someone who has proven they're not listening. It's a decision to redirect your energy inward, toward healing, growth, and self-respect. Silence is you stepping out of the endless cycle of explaining and hoping, and stepping into a place of power where you don't need validation from someone who didn't know how to appreciate you. The irony is that while silence feels like nothing on the outside, it's actually everything on the inside. It speaks volumes about your strength, your boundaries, your refusal to settle, and over time, it leaves a far deeper impression than any words could. Words fade, arguments get forgotten, but silence lingers. It creates an absence that gnaws at him. It makes him replay memories in his head, wondering how he let it slip away. It forces him to sit with the realization that you're no longer there, not because you couldn't be, but because you chose not to be. That choice is where the power lies. Regret will grow in the soil of that silence. It won't happen overnight. At first, he may not care. At first, he may even feel relieved. But as days turn into weeks and weeks into months, the silence becomes louder. The absence becomes heavier, and what once felt like control to him turns into a haunting reminder of what he lost. Your silence is the weight he has to carry, and it will remind him every single day of the love he mishandled. Healing is often misunderstood as forgetting. People think moving on means erasing the memories, pretending the past never happened, or shutting down your feelings completely. But true healing is not about erasing, it's about reclaiming. It's about taking the parts of yourself you once gave away too freely and bringing them back home where they belong. It's about closing the chapters that no longer serve you, not by denying they existed, but by refusing to let them define your present or your future. That's where the real transformation happens. When you heal, you don't just recover from what he did. You rise above it in a way that makes you untouchable to the same kind of hurt again. Healing requires honesty with yourself. It's looking at the pain square in the face and saying, yes, this hurt me. Yes, I gave my heart to someone who didn't know its worth. Yes, I stayed longer than I should have. But instead of letting those admissions weigh you down, you use them as a foundation for growth. Healing turns mistakes into lessons, heartbreak into wisdom, and endings into new beginnings. The moment you stop resisting the truth of what happened and instead embrace it as part of your story. You free yourself from the grip of regret. You stop asking why he didn't value you and start asking why you ever doubted your own value in the first place. That's the shift that changes everything. When you heal, you take back your power. He may have thought he had the last word by taking you for granted, but the real ending belongs to you. Because healing makes you stronger, wiser, and more self-assured. It makes you realize that your worth was never tied to his recognition of it. He may regret, he may replay, he may wonder what went wrong, but that's his burden to carry. Healing allows you to let go of needing to know whether or not he regrets. Because the truth is, his regret doesn't serve you. It doesn't build you. It doesn't create your future. It only confirms what you already know, that he lost something valuable. Healing, on the other hand, serves you in every way. It restores your confidence, recenters your priorities, and reignites your ability to trust yourself. There's a quiet power in walking away healed. It means you don't carry bitterness into your next chapter. You don't let anger shape your choices. You don't look over your shoulder wishing things were different. Instead, you move forward with clarity, ready to give and receive love at a higher level. Healing doesn't make you hard, it makes you discerning. It teaches you that love is not about pouring endlessly into someone else while abandoning yourself. It's about balance, reciprocity, and respect. And when you truly heal, you promise yourself never to settle for less again. The most powerful part of healing is that it happens in silence, away from him, away from his opinion, away from his awareness. He doesn't need to know how well you're doing. He doesn't need to see your progress. Healing isn't about proving anything to him. It's about proving everything to yourself. That's the real victory. Because while he might eventually feel regret, while karma might circle back to remind him of what he lost, none of that matters as much as the fact that you are no longer defined by him or what he did. You're free, and freedom is the greatest revenge of all. Healing doesn't mean the past disappears. It means the past no longer controls you. It means you can think of him without the sting, remember the relationship without the weight, and carry the lessons forward without carrying the pain. That is how you reclaim yourself fully. And once you're in that place of wholeness, nothing he does or doesn't do has the power to shake you again. That is where regret finds him and peace finds you. Life has a beautiful way of balancing the scales. When someone takes you for granted, it's not your job to punish them, to chase closure, or to make them see your worth. That's karma's job. Your job is to rise, to heal, and to reclaim the parts of yourself that you once gave away without protection. The real power isn't in making him regret. It's in no longer needing his regret to validate you. Because the moment you step into your strength, the moment you love yourself enough to stop settling, you've already won. His regret will come, maybe slowly, maybe suddenly, but it will come. And when it does, it won't matter, because you'll already be living in a higher place, freer, stronger, and more certain of your value than ever before. That's the ultimate victory, knowing that his regret belongs to him, while your future belongs to you.